From beautiful Newport Beach here in sunny Southern California, welcome into the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast. Riding shotgun with me today is the one and only, the great Juan here in Newport Beach. Juan, this is not bad. Not a bad day at the office.
Not a bad place to end up.
No.
Start your Sunday.
It's an off day for the Saints, so a good day for us on this podcast to kind of check in on where things stand with the Saints. I have a couple things I want to get into. I want to get your thoughts on a few things as well. Before we get into that, be sure to like, share, rate, and review. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit that bell notification. Hit that subscribe button to get the bell notification. But when we drop that fire content, it's been a fire week because, A, there's beautiful surroundings here, and B, there's a lot to talk about on the football field. The biggest off-the-field storyline going after the first day. Alvin Kamara showed up. He's been engaged. He's here. Covered that in the last podcast. Today, though, 4 practices in. Just want to get your thoughts, big picture-wise, where you think this team stands. I think there's a guarded sense of, I think they understand what the fans feel like, and the fans are not going to get excited, but we have to be realistic about what we see in front of us. So what is your take, big picture, through 4 practices with this team?
Because you and I make that mistake every year. We talk about it halfway through the season.
Right.
We hype this team up so much, and the fans are jumping on us. What did you guys see? I think it's 4 days in practice. They haven't put the pads on. I think the realistic thing is you're going to start to see some separation once these guys throw the pads on, and it becomes real football. On the field, 11 on 11, hitting, tackling, and all that. That's where the separation is going to happen. But right now, it hasn't been routes on air. There's been competition in the offense versus the defense. But I still think you got to hold judgment until everything gets to be for real. And there's a lot of things that we've seen that we've liked, but let's just slow down for a second.
Of course. It's been 4 practices, and when you're coming off of a season of disappointment, it's everybody's in prove-it mode. It's not necessarily what we think we might see in practice. It's what's actually happening once the games start for real. Okay, so a couple things that have kind of materialized over the last couple of practices. I thought, especially on Saturday's practice, you're starting to really see conceptually what makes this offense stand out. There's a lot of running to the edge. There's a lot of cutbacks. There's a lot of play actions, a lot of boots. There's a lot of tight formations, a lot of tight splits. So for someone like myself that watches a lot of film, it's neat to kind of see it all come together and understand what they're doing and how much everything comes off the initial concept of running the football to the edge. Saturday was their best day rushing the football, again, before the pads came on, but there were some gaping holes. And I don't want to, sometimes you look at that and you say, okay, well, what's up with the rush defense? But for these purposes, I'm saying this is a run-first offense, so they're running the ball well. I think that's a good thing.
Well, I think there was a couple times we saw Alvin Kamara hit that hole and get to the second level, and we've been complaining about that for the last couple of years with him, is that he doesn't get to the second level quite as quickly as he used to 2 or 3 years ago, and he also doesn't make that safety miss as much as he used to 2 or 3 years ago. So, I mean, that's encouraging, and it's encouraging to see him get between the tackles and maybe between the tackle and the guard and make positive runs. But I will say this new offense that Clint Kubiak's throwing in, the one big difference to me is you're seeing this team do a lot of play action, which we've known since last year. That plays to the strength. Even Derek Carr said he loves doing play action. It plays to his strength. So it's nice to see an offense that's tailoring itself towards the personnel you have, as opposed to having the offense here already installed and what they had for the last 16, 17 years, whatever, and saying, okay, the quarterback's got to adjust to what we have here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you look at this offense, and again, Kubiak is a direct lineage of the guy that invented it with his dad and Mike Shanahan and those guys when they ran this wide zone scheme. You just see why there's so much success. There's a deliberate nature to it. Dennis Allen said something interesting. And it's when you watch the plays develop, it's there. There's no real gray area. It's like the reads are defined for the quarterback. You go here, here, or here. There's no, well, if he does this, you do that. If he does that, you do this. There's a lot more clarity in the decision-making process, which I think that's why it's a QB-friendly offense, because A, they run the football, and B, the reads are clearly defined. And I think you're starting to see Derek Carr start to feel his way through a little bit. He had a really good practice on Friday, had a pretty good practice on Saturday. So he's starting to catch on. That's certainly a good thing. Very interesting to see the offensive line come together. We're going to get to that in a minute. On the other side of the ball, though, what's really stood out, 4 practices, 7 takeaways. 5 interceptions and 2 fumble recoveries. They did that a lot last year. So that's come back this year early in practice. That's a great thing to see for
And
this
what's
defense.
funny, Sean, is that we would have credited those interceptions on, well, they know the offense.
Right.
Because this is what they've
They
gone
know it,
against
yeah,
every
right.
year for the last 15,
Right.
16 years. But that's not the case this year. These guys are reading and reacting. And while Dennis Allen did say a few days ago, well, it's been nice and balanced. Both sides are making plays. They'll be mistaken. The defense has made more plays, in my opinion, on this offense, coming up with turnovers. And that's the one thing I think that's outside of enough sacks. That's the one thing that's really been missing from this secondary over the last 2, 3, 4 years is becoming more opportunistic and getting more interceptions and causing more turnovers. And so hopefully this is a sign of what's to come with this defense.
You get those extra possessions and you're able to run the football. That combination, running the football effectively, taking the ball away on defense, that could be a winning combination. Again, it's early. Again, off day. Again, Monday the pads come on, so real football begins.
If they don't have any turnovers next week,
right.
like,
they will have a little bit of an issue, right? So it's training camp. There's always going to be competition, position battles, players that pop. I've got a list of guys I think who's popped over the first 4 days. I'm going to give you the opportunity to give me yours first. Who's hot, who's not right now?
Well, I'm going to go with a guy that no one really knows. I've really liked watching Mason Tipton. He's a rookie. Dennis Allen said he had no idea who the guy was. Credited the scouting department. And it's another opportunity for a guy. When you've got a receiving core that really, to me, is two definites as your two starters, and then 4 positions, 3 or 4 positions that are up for grabs. To me, Mason Tipton has been as good a receiver in this camp as anybody. I also think Rashid Shaheed has played really, really well. He and Derek Carr have really connected well. So for me, the offensive, I mean, I know the second has been fantastic, but I'm looking at specifically offense right now. Those two guys have stood out, but Tipton has really made a name for himself in a very few short days.
He was definitely the guy no one knew about before.
You know him
makes
now.
a splash in the first 4 days, so now he's on everyone's radar. So now he's not sneaking up on anybody. So now hopefully he can carry that over when the pads come on into the preseason, because we have seen some training camp legends that don't do anything when the regular season starts. So Mason Tipton has been the guy that has really caught everyone's attention so far as an undrafted guy. A couple other guys I like. I like the linebackers right now. I love Pete Werner. I love Demario Davis. I love Willie Gay Jr. Willie Gay Jr.'s been fantastic. Those 3 guys are going to be on the field a lot, even in nickel situations, based off of what they can do with certain alignments.
Have you liked Willie's range?
There were 2 plays that we have seen where there was a cutback and there was just nothing but space, green grass on the right side, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Willie Gay is able to track the running down. And one of them was Taysom Hill. Another one, I believe, was Jordan Mims. Speaking of Jordan Mims, he's had a few good runs. He's starting to catch my eye a little bit. I've written his name down quite a few times here with the Saints. So I think Derek Carr has had a solid camp as well. Paulson Adebo has had a good camp as well. Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, a lot of run after catch stuff. Shaheed in particular, the last practice on Saturday, had a ton of opportunities for run after catch. That's what this offense is built around. To me, and you know, that running back position, Sean, outside of Alvin Kamara, it's wide open. It is.
Kendre Miller dealing with a hamstring injury from day one. Dennis Allen not happy about that, understandably. He's got to learn to be a better pro in terms of taking care of his body off the field so he can stay on the field. But that running back position after Kamara, it is wide open for someone to take it.
Hey, you got Jamal Williams, you got Kendre, you got Jordan Mims, you got James Robinson, where that 26, kind of confusing us with Deuce McAllister every now and then. So that's something to really watch going forward. A couple players that I think they got some work to do. One is Alontae Taylor. He's been beat quite a bit the first couple days of practice. I know sometimes that it's a little difficult for him because when they're in base, he's on the outside, and when they're in nickel, he kicks inside as a nickel cornerback. But he's been beat a bunch. He's been a little undisciplined on double moves, so Alontae Taylor's got to pick it up a little bit. And one player we're going to talk about a little bit later is Nick Saldiveri, the left guard. Now look, when the pads come on, we'll have a better feel for it, but even without pads, I felt like he struggled a little bit on the offensive line. So those are a couple of guys that I think probably need to pick things up when they come back to work.
Let me ask you this. Has Cam Jordan struggled in one-on-ones? Because all I've been seeing in the video we've had is that he can't get to the quarterback because he's going against Trevor Penning on that right side. So is Trevor Penning having a good camp so far, better than expected on that right side, even though he switched sides to his unnatural position? Or is Cam Jordan not what we thought he could be once again? I know it's still early, but still.
Maybe there's probably a shred of truth to both sides there.
Here's the thing, Sean, if he can't get to the quarterback with no pads on,
yeah,
what's he going to do when the pads are on?
Yeah. to be determined.
Yeah,
Hopefully he finds that that magic that he had before last season, because obviously last season was not the season that he had or that he wanted. I know he said he was hurt, but he is 35 years old. So exactly. At this stage of your career, injuries are a part of the package. It's like you got to deal with it, because when you get older, injuries happen. So Trevor Penning has been okay. Pads haven't come on yet, and he's done some decent work in one-on-ones. Had a couple of times where he got caught with a little bit of grabbing, a little bit of holding when it came to Cam Jordan, but he's one we're going to focus on a lot once the pads come on. Do want to talk about position battles. For this pod, we're going to focus on offense. There are three that have stood out to me. Left guard 1 is in the starting left guard spot. QB 2 is in the backup quarterback spot. And wide receiver 3, obviously the third wide receiver spot. We got some names to go through. Let's start with left guard 1. Look, I think you're already starting to see the transition. We'll see when the pads come on, to Lucas Patrick becoming that starting left guard, because he has now been rotated in with the ones in place of Nick Saldiveri the last 2 practices. Now, Saldiveri rotates back in, but the only reason for that is because Lucas Patrick is the second team center. So to give him some reps off, they rotate Nick Saldiveri in. So Saldiveri is a guy, came out of Old Dominion, didn't play at all much, very little a season ago as a rookie. They penciled him in as a starter at left guard. They're going to see how it goes, but he's a very inexperienced guy on a line that's got a lot of inexperience. So to me, I think Lucas Patrick might eventually slide into that starting left guard spot.
Saldiveri got that job because it was a what's left, pretty much.
Pretty much
what's left. So there's nothing guaranteed. And these training camp practices will start to separate players. I remember asking Dennis Allen yesterday, I said, what are you looking for? Which position, and asking Deuce this as well, which position will you be able to find out something about right away beginning on Monday? And he said offensive line.
That's it.
That's where it's going to be determined on both sides of the ball. But they've got to figure out the offensive line. And I would not be surprised to see the Saints in asking Mickey Loomis this on day 1 about how closely will you be paying attention to the waiver wire and seeing what offensive linemen are out there, because they would like to have more experience at that position. You would like to think that more experience comes a better player than what you have, the options you have there right now. No guarantees on that, though. But I just feel like this offensive line, while they like what they have there now, they know it can get better, can improve, and I think that guard position is up for grabs.
I think, and I think when you have 3 out of 5 linemen with virtually no NFL experience, like 8 starts or 9 starts, whatever Charlie Penning had a season ago, that's scary, especially when you talk about an offense that's predicated on, like I said, run blocking, running the football, and play action off of that. That front 5, that main 5, it's the most important decision they have to make as an offense, finding the right 5. And like I said, we're 4 practices in. We've already seen a tweak, an adjustment in personnel rotation, which, as far as I know, Saldiveri's not hurt, so it's not like they're trying to limit his reps. So I think that's something to certainly watch going forward. But look, a lot can change when the pads come on. So it may not be just left guard. It could be at right tackle at some point with Trevor Penning if he doesn't show he's got it. I do think they want him to win that job at right tackle. Of course.
I will say this, Sean. It doesn't matter what they want to do offensively. Play action, whatever. Nothing can happen to that offensive line to give you the time to do what you want to do.
Exactly.
And so they've got to get that part of it fixed.
And it's a very unique run scheme as well. So you've got a run blocking scheme where everyone has to be in alignment, even more so than in offenses of past, because of how much the synchronization of that run game to do everything off of it. So offensive line has to come together. It's the most important thing we'll have to see develop. And right now, I still think it's a very close race, or maybe even pointing in Lucas Patrick's side at that left guard position. All right, QB2. This is going to be the one that's going to be the most fun to watch because each guy, Jake Haener and Spencer Rattler, have had really good moments.
On Nate Peterman, aren't you? Just don't
Nate
like
Peterman has some moments as well, but I think it's going to be Haener versus Rattler Saturday. Rattler's best practice. He ran with the 2s, threw a bomb to Mason Tipton, had a couple other completions to Mason Tipton. I think he was 6 of 8. I charted in his passes. You see the arm talent with him. I will say this when it comes to him. Every single interception he throws looks exactly the same. Here's what happens. He is late over the middle every single time. He knows where to go with the ball. His timing is off. So is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? I think if you know where to go with the football and it's just a timing thing, you can work through that. Hopefully that's what they see. But he's got to realize in the NFL, this is just training camp. Imagine how much faster it is in games. You've got to get to where you're going quickly, because if you wait even just a half a count, we saw it happen the other day. A ball, he threw a nice strike, defender closed, tipped the ball up. Jordan Howden picked the ball
Well,
off.
you know, Sean, I think that's probably the one thing that's the hardest thing for a rookie quarterback to understand and get used to and get up to speed on is the speed of this football game at the NFL level. And you can only learn it by going through it. And so he's going through it right now. I will say this, Jake Haener, that on Friday, I think he pointed out that he didn't have one ball touch the
He didn't
ground.
have an incompletion. That's correct.
So both backup QBs, it's a really good battle to watch right now.
I love it.
To me, I feel like Jake Haener's there, and I will say this. I've never met a more confident quarterback than Jake Haener.
Yeah.
He will tell you that he believes in everything he does. He knows he said, I can make all the throws. I didn't put any balls on the ground on Friday. He just looks confident out there. He reminds me a little bit of Drew Brees a little bit in that swagger that he has. Now,